The colony on Yalara 7 was quiet in the early hours. The twin suns had not yet risen fully, and a pale light stretched across the metallic structures and rugged terrain. Captain Ethan Vance walked along the main corridor of the colony's central hub, his boots echoing softly. After months of exploration missions in distant star systems, he had returned to familiar grounds. Yet something about the colony felt different. Whispers followed him from the workers, glances that held curiosity and surprise. Something new had arrived during his absence. He reached the main assembly hall, a large space where colonists often gathered for updates and briefings. Today, however, it was silent, except for a few children peeking around the corners whispering to each other. Ethan frowned and approached the crowd. Then he saw her. She was sitting on the floor near the center of the hall, her small frame draped in a simple cloak, her dark hair falling over her shoulders. There was something unusual about her posture, a stillness that seemed both cautious and confident. Though she did not move her eyes, Ethan sensed her awareness of the room. He realized with surprise that she was blind. Lyra had arrived a few weeks ago, and already stories about her had spread through the colony. A girl who could not see yet moved with a grace that felt almost otherworldly. She helped with the children, tended small injuries, and carried herself as if she understood the world in ways others could not. And yet, despite her blindness, there was a spark in her, a warmth that seemed to reach everyone she met. Ethan approached cautiously. "Lyra?" he asked. She turned her head slightly, smiling. "Yes?" Her voice was soft but confident, with no hesitation. "I'm Captain Vance. I just returned from a mission. It seems everyone here is talking about you." Lyra's smile widened. "That's not surprising. I am new, and new things always draw attention." Ethan felt a strange pull, a mixture of curiosity and admiration. There was something remarkable about her, something that made him feel uneasy and intrigued at the same time. He remembered the days of rigorous training and endless survival drills. The colony was used to efficiency, toughness, and careful calculation. Lyra seemed to operate on something else entirely: intuition, trust, and an understanding of people rather than technology or sight. Before he could ask more, a loud clanging echoed through the hall. A supply drone delivering fresh rations had malfunctioned and began to spin out of control, threatening to smash into the walls and shelves. Panic erupted among the workers and children. Without hesitation, Lyra stood and stepped toward the chaos. Ethan watched, impressed, as she moved with a certainty that defied her lack of vision. She extended her hands, guiding frightened children to the sides, giving clear instructions.
"Stay close to the wall.
Do not panic. Follow my voice." Her words carried authority, yet there was no fear in her tone. Ethan felt an unfamiliar respect rising. He rushed forward to help, coordinating with the workers to stabilize the drone. With Lyra's calm directions and the colonists' effort, the drone finally fell silent, spinning to a stop in a corner without causing harm. When the last child was safe, Ethan approached Lyra again. "I don't know how you did that," he said. "You couldn't see the drone, but you knew exactly what to do." Lyra tilted her head slightly as if thinking. "I did not need to see. I listened, I felt, and I paid attention to the movement around me. Sight is only one way to understand the world." Ethan frowned, intrigued. "And yet you handle danger better than most of our trained workers." Lyra shrugged. "Understanding is not limited to sight. The heart and mind are tools too." For the first time in years, Ethan found himself at a loss for words. He had faced alien storms, hostile terrains, and failed missions. Yet here was a girl, blind, standing unafraid in front of him, guiding others with wisdom and courage. Over the following days, Ethan observed Lyra more closely. She worked with the children, teaching them how to navigate the colony safely. She assisted in repairing minor equipment, her hands moving confidently as if she could see through touch and sound. When colonists fell ill or suffered minor injuries, she was always near, offering comfort and support. Her presence seemed to calm others, making the colony feel safer, more united. Despite her disability, Lyra seemed to have a remarkable understanding of human behavior. She could sense fear, hesitation, and even small secrets in the way people moved or spoke. Colonists began to rely on her advice, seeking her perspective in matters of conflict or confusion. Ethan realized that she possessed a skill that no scanner or technology could replicate: the ability to understand people, to guide them without force, and to inspire trust. One morning, Ethan found himself walking alongside Lyra in the outer corridors, where the wind from the rocky plains outside whipped through the colony's protective shields. He had meant to observe her from a distance but ended up speaking. "You move as if you know every step of this place, yet you've been here only a few weeks." "How?" Lyra's lips curved into a gentle smile. "I pay attention. I notice details that others overlook. Sounds, textures, vibrations, they all tell a story. I just read them differently." Ethan looked at her, realizing how extraordinary her perspective was. "And you're not afraid?" She shook her head. "Fear is a choice. I choose focus, patience, and understanding. Fear does not help anyone." Her words struck Ethan in a way few things ever had. He had spent years preparing for dangers that might never come, and yet here was someone who faced life's uncertainties with clarity and calm. The next week brought a minor test of her abilities. A small team of colonists was sent to gather samples from a nearby cliffside. A sudden sandstorm swept across the plains, reducing visibility to almost zero. The team struggled, disoriented and panicked. Ethan raced toward the cliffside, fearing the worst. As he arrived, he heard a clear, calm voice cutting through the wind. "Left 3 steps, hold my hand, stay close." It was Lyra, leading the stranded colonists safely back toward the colony. She guided them through the blinding storm with precision, never faltering, never panicking. Ethan followed at a distance, silently amazed. When the team reached safety, they all looked at Lyra with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Ethan, usually reserved in expressing emotion, found himself saying, "You are extraordinary, not just for what you do, but for who you are." Lyra smiled again, a quiet, warm smile. "I am just a girl trying to help. That is enough for me." That evening, as the twin suns set over the jagged mountains surrounding the colony, Ethan found himself standing near the observation deck. Lyra joined him, moving with her usual grace. She did not need to look at the horizon to appreciate its beauty, yet Ethan sensed that she felt it. "I've seen a lot of places," he said quietly. "Planets, storms, dangers that would terrify most humans, but you make everything else seem smaller, easier to face." Lyra's head tilted slightly, considering him. Perhaps that is the power of trust and care. When people believe in each other, they are stronger than any storm, any danger. Ethan nodded slowly, a warmth spreading through him. He realized that the colony had changed since her arrival, not because she was extraordinary in the usual ways, but because she reminded everyone of something simple and important. Courage and love were not about strength or sight, but about heart and understanding. As night fell, the colony lights glimmered against the rocky terrain. Ethan felt a sense of hope he had not felt in years. He did not know what the future held, but for the first time he knew he wanted Lyra beside him. Not just as a friend, but as someone who had changed his world completely. And for her part, Lyra sensed it too. Though she could not see him, she felt his presence, his concern, and his growing admiration. She smiled quietly to herself, knowing that perhaps in this harsh alien world, she had found someone who might understand her in ways no one else could. The stars shone above Yalara 7 that night, countless points of light in the endless sky. Somewhere among them, the colony slept peacefully, unaware of the small but powerful force that had begun to shift their lives. A blind girl who, in her own quiet way, had already made everyone stronger, braver, and more hopeful. Ethan turned to her once more, feeling a connection that needed no words. For the first time in a long while, he was not just a captain returning from missions or a survivor of alien storms. He was simply a human, standing beside someone extraordinary, ready to learn what it meant to trust and care without limits. And Lyra, blind yet fully aware, was ready to guide him, if he would only follow. The next morning, the colony was alive with movement. The twin suns had risen higher, casting long shadows across the metallic walkways. Ethan moved through the central hub, noting the routines of the workers and children. Though he was back from his mission, he felt restless. Something about Lyra's presence had unsettled him in the best possible way. He wanted to understand her more, to see the world through her perspective, even if he could never truly experience it. He found her near the greenhouse, guiding several young colonists as they planted alien crops that thrived in Yalara 7's thin soil. The children laughed and stumbled as Lyra gently corrected their hands, showing them how to handle delicate seedlings. Even though she could not see, her touch was precise, her instructions clear, and the children listened to her without question. Ethan watched silently, impressed. "You're good with them," he said, stepping closer. I didn't know you had so much patience. Lyra turned her head toward him, her smile soft. Patience is not about being calm all the time. It's about understanding what others need and helping them reach it. Children, like adults, need guidance. Ethan nodded slowly, considering her words. They seemed simple, yet they carried a wisdom he had seldom encountered. He had trained with soldiers, explorers, and scientists, yet none had the insight that Lyra displayed effortlessly. You see things differently, he said. Even though you cannot see, you seem to notice more than anyone else here. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Seeing is only one way to know the world. I feel vibrations, hear subtle shifts, sense emotions. The world speaks in many ways. I just listen differently. Her words lingered in Ethan's mind as he watched her work. She was not limited by blindness. In fact, she seemed to thrive in ways others could not. Later that day, Ethan was called to the training grounds. New recruits were arriving, and he was assigned to prepare them for an upcoming exploration mission beyond the colony's perimeter. As he reviewed schedules and safety protocols, he noticed Lyra standing at the edge of the field, observing quietly. Are you coming to help? He asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. I want to, she replied simply. I can help them understand how to move safely and remain aware of their surroundings. Sight is not the only way to detect danger. Ethan hesitated. Training was a dangerous task, and he worried about her safety. But at the same time, he could not deny the trust he already felt in her abilities. All right, he said finally. You can assist, but stay with me at all times. During the first session, the recruits struggled. Some were clumsy, others hesitant. The terrain outside the colony was uneven, filled with jagged rocks and hidden dips. Ethan guided them carefully, correcting mistakes and demonstrating techniques. Yet when Lyra stepped forward, she moved among the recruits with a calm confidence that surprised everyone. Step lightly here, she instructed softly. Feel the ground beneath your boots. Trust your balance. Listen to the wind, it tells you the safest path. The recruits paused, listening. Slowly, they began to follow her guidance, moving more confidently. Even Ethan was impressed. He had faced countless alien environments, yet he realized that Lyra's insight went beyond physical skill. She taught them to trust themselves and each other, to perceive the world through senses often ignored. As the day wore on, Ethan found himself walking beside Lyra during a short break. You've changed how they think, he said quietly. Not just how they move, but how they notice things, how they respond. Lyra smiled faintly. It is not me, it is them. I only remind them to pay attention. Most people have this ability. They forget to use it. Ethan looked at her, feeling a mixture of admiration and something deeper he could not name. And what about you? Who guides you? Her head tilted, considering him. I trust what I feel and I listen. But humans are capable of surprising strength. Sometimes others become my guide as well. He realized she meant him, and a warmth spread through his chest. He had faced storms, alien predators, and isolation, yet he had never felt such a connection with anyone. That evening, the colony's central hub was quieter. The children were in bed, and the workers were finishing their tasks. Ethan found Lyra near the observation deck, her face lifted slightly toward the stars. He joined her silently. They are lucky, he said after a moment, to have you here. Lyra's smile was calm, yet there was a glint of amusement. I am lucky too. People can teach me things I could never learn alone. He looked at her, realizing how much he wanted to understand her world. Can you show me? He asked softly. Lyra nodded. Close your eyes. Ethan did so, hesitating for a moment. The wind brushed his face, carrying scents of metal, soil, and the faint sweetness of the alien crops. Sounds reached him. The faint hum of the colony's generators, distant footsteps, the soft rustle of Lyra's cloak as she moved beside him. Now, she said, feel the space around you. Sense the ground beneath your feet. Listen to the layers of sound. Don't think. Just notice, Ethan focused. At first it was confusing. He had relied on sight for everything, yet now he had only touch, sound, and intuition. Slowly he began to notice patterns. The way the wind shifted around the deck, the rhythm of footsteps approaching in the distance, even subtle changes in temperature where metal reflected sunlight. It is different, he said, opening his eyes after a long moment. I can't fully see it, but I feel something new. I understand a little of how you navigate the world. Lyra's smile was gentle. That is enough. Understanding even a little changes how you move through life. Over the next week, Ethan and Lyra spent more time together. He taught her some basic protocols for the upcoming mission, while she helped him perceive details he had overlooked: the subtle changes in wind before a storm, the faint tremors of unstable ground, the way colonists' emotions could hint at unspoken concerns. One afternoon, while they walked along the outer corridors, a warning siren suddenly rang through the colony. A minor quake shook the ground, causing small rocks to fall from the cliffs above. Colonists froze, unsure of what to do. Lyra moved immediately, her voice clear and calm. "Follow me."
Stay close.
She guided Ethan and several workers to a safe area, moving with precision that seemed impossible for someone who could not see. Ethan watched in awe as she led them through narrow passages, avoiding hazards he would have stumbled over. "How do you do that?" he asked quietly as they reached safety. "I listen, I feel, I sense, I trust the patterns, and I trust you," she said simply. Her words struck him deeply. Trust. It was something he had always demanded from others but seldom offered freely. And here she trusted him, not just as a leader but as a human companion. When the quake passed and the colony was safe, Ethan found himself walking beside her quietly. "You've taught me more in a few weeks than I've learned in years of missions," he admitted. Lyra's expression softened. "Humans are capable of great things, Captain. Sometimes they only need someone to remind them." The days that followed were filled with training, exploration planning, and small shared moments. Ethan found himself laughing more, noticing details he had ignored for years, and feeling a sense of connection he had never expected. One night, as they looked up at the alien stars, Ethan realized something important. Lyra's presence had not only changed the way the colony functioned, it had changed him. He had learned to slow down, to observe, to trust not just in technology or sight, but in people, in intuition, and in the unexpected. Lyra sensed his thoughts, though she could not see the blush on his cheeks. "You are learning," she said softly. "That is the first step." He smiled, feeling a strange joy. "I think I might understand now in a small way what it means to see without sight." And Lyra, standing beside him, felt the truth of it too. In a world that often demanded perfection, strength, and clarity, they had found something simpler yet far more powerful: trust, connection, and understanding. As Yalara 7's twin suns set again, casting long shadows across the colony, Ethan and Lyra walked side by side, silently aware that the bond they had formed was only the beginning. Together they could face challenges, explore the unknown, and discover that sometimes the strongest guidance comes not from eyes, but from heart and mind. The stars above shone like silent witnesses, and for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt certain of one thing: life on Yalara 7 would never be the same. Not with Lyra here to show him and everyone else how to truly see. The following week brought a new challenge to the colony on Yalara 7. Scouts had reported strange movements in the cliffs beyond the settlement, shadows moving unnaturally across the jagged rocks. At first, the colonists assumed it was wildlife, but when livestock began disappearing and the air grew tense with unease, Ethan realized this was something different. Something intelligent, something deliberate. The colony held a meeting in the central hub. Ethan addressed the gathered workers and explorers. "We don't know exactly what we are dealing with," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We must remain vigilant. This is not a panic situation. We follow protocols, we support each other, and we stay aware." Whispers filled the hall. Colonists were nervous, unsure if the threat was alien, predatory, or something beyond their understanding. Lyra stood at the edge of the assembly, her posture straight and calm. Ethan noticed how people instinctively gravitated toward her, seeking reassurance even if they could not explain why. After the meeting, Ethan found Lyra near the observation deck, her head tilted slightly, listening to the sounds of the rocky plains. "Do you feel it too?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes, something approaches. It moves carefully, aware, intelligent. It is not a storm and it is not a herd. It watches, waits." Ethan frowned. "You want to help us track it?" "I want to help you understand it," she replied. "I can sense things you might miss." "Trust me." Ethan hesitated. This was dangerous, perhaps reckless, yet he had learned to trust her in the past days. "All right," he said. "We do it together, but we follow safety protocols. No one takes unnecessary risks." The next morning, Ethan led a small team of scouts, including Lyra, toward the cliffs. The sun had barely risen and the rocky landscape stretched out like a jagged maze. The scouts moved cautiously, scanning with instruments and sensors, but the readings were confusing, inconsistent. Lyra walked beside Ethan, moving carefully over uneven ground. She made no sound beyond the occasional instruction. 2 steps to your left. Lower your hand, there is loose rock here, she said softly, guiding the team. The scouts exchanged glances. How does she know that? One whispered. She feels it, Ethan said quietly. Listen to her. Trust her. Hours passed as they moved through the cliffs. Then suddenly a deep growl echoed across the rocks. The scouts froze, weapons raised. Shadows shifted on the cliffs above, and a low, menacing presence seemed to surround them. Lyra stepped forward. Stay calm. Move slowly. Don't make sudden gestures. Her voice was steady, almost soothing. It senses fear. Confidence keeps it unsure. Follow me. Ethan watched in awe as she led the team through a narrow pass. She guided them around hidden pitfalls, jagged rocks, and unstable ground, moving with precision that seemed impossible. Every step was calculated, every instruction clear and effective. The scouts began to relax, following her guidance, relying on her senses more than their scanners. Suddenly, a larger shadow moved across the cliff face. A creature emerged, its sleek form blending with the rocks, its movements deliberate and careful. The scouts froze, their fear palpable, but Lyra remained calm. Observe it, she instructed. Notice its rhythm, the way it approaches. Do not react yet. Do not show fear. Ethan realized she was teaching them a new way to understand danger, not through weapons or shields, but through awareness and perception. The creature circled them, curious but cautious, testing boundaries. One scout whispered, "We should fire." Lyra shook her head. "Only if necessary. We observe first. Do not provoke." The tension stretched for minutes, each heartbeat loud in the quiet canyon. Then the creature, after studying the group, turned and disappeared into the rocks. The scouts exhaled in relief, amazed. Ethan turned to Lyra. "How did you know it wouldn't attack?" he asked. Lyra smiled faintly. "It is intelligent. It tests, it learns, it senses weakness. I felt its hesitation. It was studying us as much as we were studying it. We respected its space and it respected ours." Ethan shook his head in disbelief. "You see what others cannot. You feel what we cannot, and yet you move among us as if it is ordinary." "Because it is ordinary," Lyra said softly. "The world is full of danger, but also full of signals. Most people ignore them. I do not. I listen." They returned to the colony where the colonists were waiting anxiously. Ethan recounted the encounter, emphasizing Lyra's guidance and the importance of observation over fear. The story spread quickly, and once again people looked to her with admiration and trust. The next days were filled with preparations. The team would venture further into the cliffs, mapping the territory and understanding the creatures that shared the land. Ethan trained the scouts to rely on observation, awareness, and teamwork, often referring to Lyra's instructions. She worked beside them, teaching them how to perceive subtle changes. The shift in wind, the faint tremor of ground, the minute sounds that revealed movement. One afternoon, while reviewing their route, Ethan and Lyra walked in quiet reflection. "You know," Ethan said, "I never realized how much I depended on sight. I always thought it was the most important sense. But you've shown me it is not." Lyra's expression was thoughtful. "Sight can deceive. Perception is more than seeing. Feeling, listening, understanding. These guide humans even better if used carefully." Ethan smiled faintly. "And you guide people naturally, even without sight." "It's remarkable." Lyra shook her head. "It is not remarkable. It is necessary. Humans are capable of more than they know. Sometimes they just need a little help remembering." That evening, the colony experienced its first serious test. A pack of creatures approached the outer perimeter, moving silently in the shadows. Sensors detected them too late for a full defensive plan. The colonists panicked, unsure of what to do. Ethan rushed to coordinate, but it was Lyra's calm voice that carried through the chaos. "Form a line. Keep close. Follow my voice," she commanded, moving through the colony with precision. She guided workers and children to safe areas, instructed scouts to secure supplies, and predicted the creature's movements with uncanny accuracy. Ethan watched as she moved confidently, her presence giving strength to the frightened colonists. He realized that she had become more than a guide. She was the colony's anchor in moments of fear. When the creatures finally retreated, the colony erupted in relief and gratitude. Ethan approached Lyra, feeling a deep respect and admiration. "You've saved more than supplies and lives," he said quietly. "You've saved confidence. You've reminded everyone what it means to trust and stay calm." Lyra smiled softly. "I only reminded them of what they already had. Courage, care, awareness. I merely pointed the way." Ethan shook his head, smiling despite the exhaustion. "You are extraordinary. Not because of strength, but because of insight, calm, and trust. That is more valuable than anything else we have." The night fell quietly over Yalara 7. Stars shone above, distant and bright, reflecting off the colony's metallic structures. Ethan and Lyra walked together along the observation deck. "You've changed everything," Ethan said softly. "The way we see danger, the way we act, the way we trust each other. I've learned more in these days than in years of missions." Lyra turned her head toward him, her smile gentle. "And I have learned from you as well. Humans are capable of more than even they believe. It is a privilege to witness it." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest he could not explain. For months he had faced the unknown alone, relying on experience, training, and instruments. Now with Lyra beside him, he realized that strength came from connection, from trust, and from guidance beyond sight. The colony settled that night with renewed confidence. Children slept safely, workers rested without fear, and the scouts prepared for the next day's exploration. All of them had seen the impact of Lyra's abilities, not just her skill in sensing and guiding, but her presence, her calm, and her trust. Ethan stayed near the observation deck longer than usual, watching the stars with her. "Do you ever wish you could see?" he asked softly. Lyra considered him for a moment. "No, I do not need sight to understand the world. What matters is perception, attention, and heart. I see more than many who have sight alone." Ethan nodded, feeling a deep respect and admiration. He realized that the colony's survival depended not only on technology, training, or weapons, it depended on people like Lyra, people who reminded them that courage, trust, and awareness were as powerful as any tool. And as they stood together under the stars, Ethan knew that whatever challenge awaited them next, they would face it with confidence. Not because of strength alone, but because they trusted each other, learned from each other, and saw the world in ways that went beyond sight. Lyra, blind yet fully aware, had shown him and everyone around them that true vision came from perception, courage, and connection. And Ethan knew, deep in his heart, that he would follow her guidance wherever it might lead, ready to face the unknown together. The following morning, Yalara 7's colony awoke to a tense but determined atmosphere. The previous days had tested them, and the scouts' report suggested that the creatures in the cliffs were still nearby. Ethan stood at the command center reviewing the latest sensor data, while Lyra moved quietly among the colonists, offering calm words and guidance. Ethan felt a deep sense of trust in her presence. He had learned that her blindness was not a weakness. It was a different way of understanding, and often it was stronger than sight. She had guided them through storms, quakes, and encounters with the creatures, and now, together, they would face the final challenge, venturing further into the cliffs to understand and neutralize the threat before it escalated. The team assembled at the edge of the colony, fully equipped with scanners, tools, and communication devices. Ethan gave a brief speech emphasizing teamwork, awareness, and calm. Lyra stood beside him, her posture straight and confident. "Remember," she said softly, "observe, feel, listen. Do not panic. The creatures test confidence. If we remain calm, they will respect us. Trust each other." The journey into the cliffs was tense. The rocky terrain stretched for miles, jagged peaks and deep crevices making progress slow. The creatures were intelligent and cautious, often hiding until the scouts approached. Ethan relied on the scanners. The team followed protocols, but it was Lyra who guided them with subtle insights. When to step lightly where the ground might shift, and how to move in ways that would not attract attention. Hours passed and the team reached a high plateau. Below them, a large cave system opened into the cliffs, the likely home of the creatures. Ethan studied the sensors and saw patterns, movements, breathing, and vibrations that suggested the creatures were observing them, curious but not yet hostile. "Here," Lyra said, her voice calm. "We wait, observe their patterns, learn them, understand their behavior before acting." Ethan nodded, The team spread out carefully, keeping quiet while Lyra guided their actions. Slowly, they began to notice the rhythm she described. The creatures moved with precision, avoiding certain rocks, pausing at natural barriers and responding to the slightest sound. Each observation was a lesson in patience and awareness. Then a sudden movement caught Ethan's attention. One of the creatures approached a small scout who had wandered too far. The scout froze, panic rising. Lyra's voice cut through the tension like a calm current. "Step back slowly.
Maintain eye contact with me."
Breathe steadily." The scout obeyed, moving carefully as Lyra continued guiding him. The creature paused, sniffed the air, and then retreated into the shadows. The team exhaled collectively, realizing how close they had come to danger. Ethan glanced at Lyra, understanding that her guidance had saved them once again. The day continued with more careful exploration. Lyra instructed the team on observing the environment, noticing subtle sound changes, reading vibrations in the ground, and sensing movements that the scanners could not detect. Her ability to interpret the world without sight became a model for the entire team, teaching them to rely on awareness and intuition rather than fear or technology alone. As the sun began to set, painting the cliffs in warm gold and deep shadow, Ethan realized they had gathered enough information. The creatures were not aggressive by nature. They were cautious, intelligent, and protective of their territory. The real danger had been the team's lack of understanding, not the creatures themselves. Ethan and Lyra led the team back to the colony, moving carefully but confidently. The colonists watched their return with anticipation, eager to hear what had been discovered. Once safely back, Ethan addressed the assembly. "The creatures are not enemies," he said firmly. "They are intelligent and cautious. Our fear made us vulnerable, but thanks to Lyra we have learned how to observe, understand, and interact without provoking them. We will live alongside this world, not conquer it. We adapt, we respect, and we thrive." A wave of relief and admiration spread through the colonists. Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes closed as she felt the energy of the crowd. "The key," she said softly, "is trust and awareness. Trust each other and trust what you feel. Observe, listen, and care. That is how humans survive and grow stronger." Ethan approached her after the meeting, a smile on his face. "You've taught them more than I could have imagined. Not just about survival, but about confidence, awareness, and respect. And me, you've taught me too." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "Humans are capable of great things, Ethan. They only need guidance sometimes. You've guided them well as their leader, and I am proud to help." He felt a warmth he had never felt before. She was blind, yet she saw more than anyone else he knew. Her courage, insight, and calm had transformed the colony, strengthened the people, and changed him. "I think I understand now," he said quietly. "Strength is not just about weapons or training. It's about trust, understanding, and heart. You've shown me that." Lyra's lips curved into a gentle smile. "That is all anyone can do. We live, we learn, and we help each other grow. That is what makes humans strong." The days that followed were filled with preparation and rebuilding. The colony strengthened its defenses, organized patrols, and established clear protocols for coexistence with the creatures. Ethan and Lyra worked closely, sharing responsibilities and insights, and the bond between them deepened. They spent hours exploring new areas, testing strategies, and training the next generation of scouts to rely on observation, intuition, and teamwork rather than fear. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Ethan found Lyra near the observation deck. The wind carried the scents of the plains and the distant mountains. He stood beside her quietly, watching the stars appear one by one. "You've changed everything," he said softly. "The colony, the people, and me. You've shown us what it truly means to see." Lyra's smile was calm, serene. "Seeing is not just about eyes. It is about understanding, awareness, and connection. You have learned this too, Ethan. That is what makes you strong." He turned to her, feeling a surge of gratitude and admiration. "And I want to continue learning from you and with you. Not just about survival, but about life, about trust, and about what makes humans human." Lyra's head tilted slightly. "Then we will learn together. That is all I ever wanted, to help humans see their own strength." The night settled over Yalara 7, quiet and peaceful. The colony thrived under the protection and guidance of its people, strengthened by the lessons of observation, trust, and courage. The creatures in the cliffs remained at a distance, their presence understood and respected. Humans and the alien world had found balance, guided by awareness and empathy rather than fear and aggression. Ethan walked beside Lyra, feeling a sense of completeness he had never known. "I've faced storms, predators, and unknown worlds," he said quietly. "But nothing has ever shown me courage and strength like you have." Lyra reached out and gently touched his arm, a gesture of trust and connection. "You have courage too, Ethan. You have guided and protected, and you have learned. That is why we thrive." They stood together, silent but connected, watching the twin moons rise over the cliffs. The colony slept peacefully, children safe, workers at rest, and scouts ready for the next day. Everything felt possible. Everything felt alive with potential and hope. Ethan realized that this was more than survival. This was humanity at its best, resilient, adaptable, and connected. And at the center of it all, guiding, teaching, and inspiring, was Lyra. Blind, yet seeing more than anyone else. For the first time in his life, he understood the true meaning of strength, courage, and trust. And he knew that with her by his side, humans could face any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and thrive in worlds beyond imagination. Lyra smiled, sensing his thoughts. "The world is full of lessons, Ethan, and together we will discover them all." He nodded, feeling an unspoken promise between them. No matter what the future held, they would face it together, with awareness, trust, and heart. And for the first time, the stars above Yalara 7 seemed brighter than ever, a reflection of the human spirit and the extraordinary bond that had formed in the heart of a harsh alien world. The colony had survived storms, quakes, and creatures, but more importantly, it had grown stronger, braver, and wiser. And at the center of this transformation was a girl who could not see, yet had changed the way everyone understood the world. Ethan took her hand gently. "Thank you, Lyra, for everything," she smiled, squeezing his hand in return. "No, Ethan, thank you. For trusting me, for believing, and for learning. That is what makes humans extraordinary." And under the alien sky, with stars shining like silent witnesses, the colony slept, safe and inspired. Humans had discovered a new kind of vision, and it had begun with trust, courage, and a blind girl who loved the world, and its people, enough to guide them forward.